Money leads to power, okay? Power leads to influence. Influence leads to change and impact, if you will. That's a very powerful domino effect. When I'm speaking on a stage and it's to women who are not necessarily in the field, every time I use the trillion number in terms of what we're going to get, there's like a hush or a gasp in the audience. Most women don't know this. We need to get the word out because unless we know about that, we don't know about the power that we have to change the course of what we see right now. We will have the wherewithal, especially the financial resources. And what are we going to do with those resources?
Welcome to the Futurecaster podcast, where we give you a front row seat into the future of business, life, and human potential.
The largest transfer of wealth in human history has already begun. Over the next 25 years, an estimated $124 trillion will change hands. And for the first time ever, women are expected to control the majority of it, with up to $100 trillion shifting into new decision-making power. And at the same time, the AI revolution is disrupting capital infrastructure and investing itself. This isn't just about inheritance, because wealth doesn't just sit in accounts. It builds cities, it funds innovation, it determines which problems get solved and which don't. Anita Knotts has spent more than 30 years inside financial services and is now founder and CEO of the Lotus Women's Institute. She sits at the center of this historic shift, exploring what happens when women become the primary stewards of global wealth and how that could redefine investing, family legacy, and the very purpose of money itself. But beneath the headlines, something even more profound is happening. Wealth is no longer just something passed down once at the end of life. In this episode, we explore the rise of AI-guided wealth management, the future of family offices, and how younger generations may inherit living financial ecosystems designed to evolve with their lives, protect their independence, and respond in real time to opportunity and crisis. Because the real story isn't just who inherits this money, it's what they do with it, and how their decisions will quietly reshape society. Hi, Anita. Welcome to Futurecaster.
My gosh, I'm incredibly excited to be here. It's a wonderful topic, and I'm looking forward to it.
My first question for you is, how did you become very focused on women and wealth? And when did you realize that the great wealth transfer wasn't just financial, but it was a big change in society?
Yes, it's a great way to kick us off. I kind of divide my career into two phases. The first phase was just me just trying to navigate the world of wealth management and money. I did not see a whole lot of people who looked like this, right? So the first half of my career was just pinging and ponging and zigging and zagging and figuring out everything. The latter half of my career thought, as an advisor myself, I often recall that women would come into meetings with their husbands, but very rarely would they speak. They were sort of outsourcing their financial livelihood, right? In general, nothing wrong with that. But when you think about the fact that money and financial livelihood and the fact that women outlive their male spouses, the fact that divorce is we still have a pretty high rate of divorce in this country, all of these topics combined made me realize that women should be taking more ownership of their future wealth building, right? So after seeing quite a bit of that happening, I thought a couple of things. Women aren't taking ownership, but does that change if we can bring more women into the industry? Would that then change who took ownership of it outside of the field? The other was the great wealth transfer itself. It wasn't like there was one fine day where I just read something and I thought, oh my gosh. No, it wasn't that at all. It was more so learning about the fact that there is an unbelievable, unprecedented, intergenerational wealth transfer, like unprecedented in history, right? That's coming up. And we can talk about the global number, which is in, multiple trillions. But even in the United States, by the year 2030, which by the way is just around the corner, women in the United States are expected to control $34 trillion in private wealth. And so many women hear the word trillion and they're like, that's not me. And so you kind of have to break it down. When you break it down into stories of divorce, right? Death of a spouse, the fact that 9 out of 10 women at some point will take ownership or become decision makers in their families, now it starts to come to our level. Now it's not just about the trillions. Now it's about the fact that this is just lifing. And if we're not getting into the forefront of taking ownership of that, what does that mean for me? Then this is going to be troublesome. This is going to be problematic. So 5 years ago, I decided to make a leap and a jump, really, and left corporate America because I saw this as a bigger problem. The great wealth transfer is going to introduce a lot of wealth to women who simply don't know what to do with it. And I mean that with no disrespect. These are educated women, these are hardworking women. By the way, these are very successful women. It's just they've been so focused on doing all of that I just mentioned that focusing on investing and wealth planning and financial planning and retirement planning, it took a back seat because we're too busy caring for everybody else in our lives. So I launched Lotus Women's Institute 5 years ago to actually help firms meet the moment, if you will, of this great wealth transfer.
What are the three things that women are most afraid about when it comes to talking about money?
The first is trust. They don't know who to trust. Many of them do get contacted by firms, by people who they don't know from a hole in the wall, right? So the biggest aspect is trust. The second is a lack of confidence. So many of them, the first thing they will say is, I'm not good with math. And I tell them it actually has nothing to do with math. It has to do with the curiosity. That's all you need. You just need curiosity to learn and a curiosity to say, not even a curiosity, the the self-advocacy chip in our brain to say, I deserve this. I deserve to be healthy and wealthy. I deserve to be on solid footing. And so many of us, as strange as it sounds, so many of us think that every other thing and every other person comes from a priority perspective ahead of that. It's the mindset, and there's a lot of communities that are sprouting up now, investing for women, investing communities, wealth planning communities for women that really brings the topic down to an everyday kind of, hey, you can do this. Look at everything else you've done. Look at everything you've navigated to get to this moment in your life. And you're telling me you can't invest? Come on, right? But sometimes we need our girlfriends to tell us that with exactly that tone. Women are all about community. If we know somebody who can come help fix our toilet, we're going to tell 20 of our girlfriends, this is the person you need to come to your house to help fix your toilet. It's no different with money management. It's no different with our wealth building, right? Hey, I met this, I actually have a woman advisor that really has helped me. She's met the kids, she's met my spouse. We're all sort of on the same page. You don't think she's going to tell 10 to 20 of her girlfriends about this woman advisor? This is why we are sitting at this most opportunistic moment in our industry, right? Not just because of the wealth transfer, but because of the opportunity that it creates for women in the industry and for women as clients of the future. I am always telling women it's not that hard. It's really not that hard. The industry itself, wealth management as an industry, has done a number on us using certain jargon, kind of putting certain role models up there that we thought we were supposed to aspire to. And that's not it at all. So part of what I'm doing right now is trying to debunk some of the myths. I learned quite a bit. I learned that no one's coming to save us. It's got to be us, right? I learned that hearing a lot of women, I had the most amazing women clients, and they would say things like, look, I take care of everything in the house. Plus, I work outside of the house. He can do this small thing, Anita. He can focus on our financial picture. I would tell these wives, you want him to partake in a little bit more of the child rearing. Guess what? When I talk to him, he wants you to take care of a little bit more of the financial ownership. So can you both kind of trickle into each other's territory so that you're kind of acting as partners in the household, right?
I believe that, as the wealth shifts to women too, it's not going to be women against men at all in the future. I think that even men in power And men in office will engage with women more and work with them to help them learn more about finance, and then work with them in the cities too. Because I think whether you're a father or a mother, you want your children to be safe. And so I think we're all going to work better together in the future, because I think women are going to have more of a voice and a seat at the table. And I think that's the future we need to have.
Yes, so beautifully stated. I could not agree more. And I say this being all about women's empowerment, right? It's my whole work. But I think we need our male allies. And they need us. They need us. If we're going to be controlling the bulk of private wealth, and I don't know if you've heard of this statistic, but years ago, I stated in my TED Talk, the World Economic Forum actually came out and said women tend to reinvest 90% of their earnings back into communities, back into families, back into health, education, all of it. It's actually a known fact. Empowering women financially, economically, doesn't just benefit women, it benefits society. And that includes men and sons and I've got one of each. I don't want my son suffering, right? And my daughter to continue to rise. So to your point, yes, we're all necessary for this.
Financial companies and even wealth advisors don't even really understand what's coming. I'd like to add an additional layer onto what we're talking about today. $124 trillion will change hands, and $100 trillion of that will go to women. So when we think of the great wealth transfer, we think of inheritance. But there's a whole other new aspect of society going on that lays on top of that, and that's AI. And there are deeper structural shifts happening beneath the surface that few people are paying attention to. One of these deeper shifts that I see that is going to happen in the future is that wealth is shifting from institutional control to personal AI driven stewardship. It's going to put power into the hands of more people than ever before. It's going to democratize even the family office for people. So now imagine that women are inheriting all this money, and AI is going to allow them to build the next $1 billion company on their own. Anyone that can access AI will have that power. There's companies like Autonomous Technologies Group that's building the first AI family office platform. So it's a family office in your pocket, which then gives all families access to what people didn't have before. And public.com's pioneering agentic investing. So it's designing dynamic portfolios with that AI for people. So it's making every person a sovereign architect of their own wealth ecosystem, I'll call it. And there's even more shifts happening, just the amount of entrepreneurial and new businesses being started by women more so than in history. So they're investing, they're inheriting. So I think what you said is really smart, because you first have to get women to understand it's not as scary as we might think. I think we all are afraid of talking about money, and it also causes a lot of problems in relationships. So people tend to stay away from the subject. What underlying, shifts do you feel are happening?
They have already started happening. I'm going through a lot of these myself. I launched a business at the age of 51, right? Some people call me crazy and others may say, hey, go for it, right? But even though I spent 3 decades in the money world, do you know I'm learning every day? I am learning every day. Managing personal finances is one thing, personal wealth, that's one thing. Managing the wealth of a business, managing profitability of a business, it's a completely different ball of wax, right? So, my point in saying that is that we have to constantly be learning. At no other time in history, look at the statistics you just gave us, look at the companies that you just mentioned are launching right now within the AI ecosystem. There is zero reason for us to be saying, I don't know. At no other time has information been more accessible than it is at this very moment, right? I often find myself, to be honest with you, I get frustrated because as a business owner, I'm only 5 years into it. And I will say, well, there's got to be a manual or something written about da 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 da, some topic, right? I know a ton of women entrepreneurs. Nobody knows. Nobody knows, right? Having access to information at our fingertips gives us um, just an unbelievable leverage to kind of change the course of history. And you use the word inheritance. Inheritance to me is the headline. I like the other word you use, the stewardship, right? Stewardship, when I hear stewardship, I think of like decision-making power is now actually shifting. It's not just a dollar going from this hand to this hand. It is, what does she do with that dollar, right? The number of like women-owned registered investment advisory firms that are being launched. These women are rewriting the rules, so to speak, of what the future of this field could look like.
Something that shocked me recently, I came across some data that boomers and Gen Xers right now in America control 80% of the wealth. 80% of the wealth are people 45 and older. So let that sink in. And those generations tend to get ignored by companies. But, as this great wealth transfer happens, there's going to be many generations of women that start controlling decision making and not just purchasing, but capital and investment decision making in the future. It's going to be massive. So, how do you see the different generations, boomers, Gen X, millennials, Gen Z, approaching this new wealth differently as it transfers over the next 20 years?
Yeah, such a powerful question. And I see baby boomer women as loyal, um, as sort of stewards of the family's emotional center, so to speak. They kind of kept everything together. But oftentimes they played secondary decision maker when it came to household financial decisions, right? I'm not saying good or bad. I'm just saying it is. That's what it was. Then you have women in my category, the Gen Xers. Right now, I feel like there's caretaking on both sides, right? I've got caretaking of my parents, caretaking of my children, which technically they're both outside of the house, but still, you never really stop being a parent, right? But I also had a successful career. I also played financial decision maker in the household. We're straddling two areas. Then you go into millennials who definitely values based, much more focused on values, and they're getting to understand financial freedom. They're getting to understand the concept of financial freedom. Millennial women, especially Gen Z. My daughter, 24-year-old, right? She's been investing for 6 or 7 years already. I didn't even know what a stock was when I was 16 or 17, right? So they already know what the power of investing can do. They already know the concept of wealth building. But guess what they also know? They have to navigate an industry that they don't trust. And this is all things, these are conversations I have actually with both of my kids, right? It's yes, we know exactly what we need to do. We know the power of investing. We know that we need to plan ahead. We know that even at the age of 22, 23, 24, we have to look at retirement planning. But who do we actually go to outside of mom and dad? A lot of Gen Z individuals don't have that. They're kind of futzing around, figuring it out themselves. So there is a trust deficit that they're trying to navigate, but that's how I see the various generations, especially when it comes to women, viewing this topic.
I believe that Gen Z, they're going to unleash AI. They're going to be building out their own agents. And I think in 20 years' time, the AI family office will be the norm for them. We're going to be using AI to help govern family capital, and it's going to become part of the family. And the private wealth manager, the human relationship becomes 100 times more important in the future. The private wealth manager in the future becomes the steward of the intelligent AI systems for the family and becomes more involved in the family's decisions, conflict, helping them navigate through generations and life and do what's good. And so private wealth managers who have real relationships with families are going to become way more important, and their role is going to completely change when AI takes over, but it doesn't go away to me.
Yeah, I think you stated it beautifully, actually. Over the past 20 to 25 years, I saw the industry that I originally entered go from strictly investment management to now investment management is totally commoditized. Everybody does it, right? Navigated to wealth management. And now we're sitting at the cusp of, what can AI do for us? I think we're obviously just skimming the surface right now. I also want to respect the fact that we are a highly regulated industry, and we have to be. We're working with people's money, right? So the regulation is important. but I wrote about this recently in my newsletter a couple of weeks ago. There's a lot of firms out there who are almost so afraid that they're hesitating to dip their toe in the water, so to speak. And they're using the compliance risk as a reason to not move forward. So my conversation with them is, you're already behind the eight ball, right? So start figuring out how you can use AI almost as a digital chief of staff, or what can it do to free up your support team so that they can do more human contact, human connection, so that they free up the time for themselves, for their advisors, because of the exact reason you just mentioned, Kimberly. This industry, while everybody's freaking out about AI and, oh my God, jobs are going to go away, no, it actually makes advisors and the human connection all the more important. I recall a client of ours, and their daughter decided to get married to a person that they were not super crazy about, let's just say, right? And so the wife actually called us in as her family advisor and said, what do we build into our estate planning documents? What do we say to our attorney to make sure that should something happen, he doesn't run off with this? You can understand when the family has family wealth that they've built up through their own blood, sweat, and tears, right? How do we protect it? So asset protection, AI definitely has a place in it, but the human element will never go away from that. And that is critical. That is what we need to keep surfacing as this industry evolves over the next 10, 15, 20 years.
People who are selling financial services and they don't have that real relationship with the families, especially the wealthy families, they're gone in the future because this person literally has to become a part of the family. There's going to be fights, there's going to be conflicts. Wealth managers in the future must be AI first. They have to understand the agentic systems. They have to be able to build those systems. They're going to be used as almost, AI advisors in the future as well. When I think about the financial organizations that are afraid of AI today, you think of platforms like Sife that are automating portfolio management. Clio is, an AI financial companion, and younger consumers are already using it. So
Yes.
those companies are going to be left behind, and there's never been a bigger opportunity for startups, fintech startups to come in and take huge chunks of business. The ones that don't understand women and how they want to invest in what they find to be valuable are also going to lose. It doesn't matter if they're a cool fintech startup.
You're so spot on. Every day there's a new fintech launching, right? But what are we talking about here? We're talking about this intergenerational wealth transfer that's taking place. When we started off in this industry, it was all about beating a benchmark. Is it the S&P? Is it the NASDAQ? Just so you can go to a cocktail party on Saturday night and say, guess how much I'm up versus the S&P. Guess what? Women don't look at that at all. They're not looking to beat a benchmark. The women I've talked to have said, I don't want to die a bag lady. The women I've talked to have said, if my adult son comes home through losing a lot of money in a bad divorce, am I going to be able to take care of him if he's living in my basement? Right? They are looking at like financial life goals, right? So any system that we're building through AI, through these it has to answer for that. We are way past the point of beating a benchmark. We are talking about goals-based discussions now. Think also about the fact that typically when it was primarily men in the workforce, it was kind of a linear career, right? You start when you're young, you get out of college, you enter the workforce, and then you retire at 65, and then you live happily ever after. Well, guess what? Bulk of the workforce is now women. Bulk of the people getting graduate degrees, women. What does their career look like? It's not linear. It's up and down. There's career gaps. There's pivots. There's people who leave corporate and have to start off totally over again, right? So how does asset allocation look for that person? What does this mean for planning discussions? Believe it or not, there's still firms out there who say all we do is investment management. And I have to be very blunt with them and tell them you're going to become obsolete. It's just not where it's headed.
They shouldn't be called wealth advisors, should be financial stewards or financial architects. Calling people financial advisors is going to be like dial-up modems.
There are exactly two firms that I work with right now that use that exact word. So you're spot on, the architect. component. A girlfriend of mine actually said, "Can we get your industry to just stop using the word wealth altogether?" She is from outside of the field, but she feels it's a very intimidating term because when most women, especially, think of the future, they think of money, it's already an intimidating topic. And sometimes it tends to be a topic of shame also. So when you say wealth, a lot of women kind of back away from that. So trying to find a word that's more relevant to what they need. And I haven't landed on that word yet.
I believe that women should start talking about abundance and creating that. And abundance doesn't have to be money. Wealth is intimidating because wealth equals money. But abundance is so much more. It's a bigger idea of prosperity and having access to
Yeah.
things.
Yeah, it's such a great point, whether it's wealth to abundance, which I absolutely love. There's also the traditional scope of like success. Like, what does that actually mean? And there's not a single woman I know that defines it only in the monetary sense. Wealth is only one component of the abundance that you speak of. So I couldn't agree more.
I believe that in the future, prosperity shifts to invisible resilience, where health, security, and stability, you mentioned the word stability with boomers, that's key for them, on top of growth become priorities for investment. The future of wealth is a force field. So it's not just about accumulation of things, it's a force field. It moves from accumulation to protection. So it supports human resilience, and I call it the human resilience economy. We're going to configure AI portfolios not just to grow, but to protect time, well being, life optimization over time. How we set up family trusts and how we set up estate planning is going to change with that. I also believe that the first revolution is going to be in care. Women are going to take this wealth that they're about to inherit or build and create real intelligent care networks. Longevity labs are going to get a lot more investment, caregivers, personal health ecosystems. So the care economy is going to dwarf anything we've seen in care in history. So if we think about 10 years out, the care economy will be even bigger. And I don't mean just healthcare. I mean, fully holistic care. So you have companies like Honor and Papa who are already transforming elder care, right? You're saying, you have to care for your parents. Figure AI is building caregiving robots. That whole industry is going to explode as well. Women don't want to just hear about risk mitigation. They want to hear about resilience, stability, safety, and AI managing all of that for them autonomously over time. And then they need someone who really understands that to guide their family. In the work that I've done as a futurist, that's where I'm seeing things going. I don't think women realize just how much they're about to inherit. It's not a conversation that we're having, it's happening in small circles. And again, I don't think women understand with AI what they're going to build, the wealth that they're going to be able to build with access to intelligence they never had before. Anyone in society, not just women, but anyone is going to have more access to intelligence and systems and be able to build things overnight or in minutes or just themselves. The company of one is going to exist in the future. And I don't think we even realize any of this. So I think that the care economy by 2050, and when I say care, yes, it could be elder care, but it's going to be more about humans' resilience. Like if people lose all their jobs or young people can't get jobs in the marketplace, what are the new systems for the abundance economy? Like, what do we need to build and create in society? Women could lead that conversation.
Right. There's two things, and I bet you I'm going to forget one of them, but there's two things I want to say. One is this domino effect that I often think about. Money leads to power. Okay. Power leads to influence. Influence leads to change and impact, if you will. That's a very powerful domino effect. And to your point, when I'm on social media, all of my posts are not my posts, but the algorithms, the post, the feed that I get is all about this topic, right? Because I'm in it. I'm in it. When I'm speaking on a stage and it's to women who are not necessarily in the field, every time I use the trillion number in terms of what we're going to get, there's like a hush or a gasp in the audience. So to your point, I most women don't know this. We need to get the word out. That needs to be the real domino effect. You tell you, tell you, tell you, and get the word out that this is coming, right? Because unless we know about that, we don't know about the power that we have to change the course of what we see right now. We actually say, what is within the locus of our control? What is it that Anita can do today to kind of make, at least start the ripple effect to create the ultimate tidal wave of change, right? Change could be the resilient society. I'm not meaning to be rainbows and lollipops, by the way. This is not easy work. This is hard work. But the first step is acknowledging that the work needs to be done, that we will have the wherewithal, especially the financial resources, and what are we going to do with those resources?
What also might be interesting is that children become part of the family conversation on wealth planning and wealth management. If you think about today, the children don't really talk about it until their parents are aging or something happens in the family, and then they're kind of forced to talk about it. But I think the families of the future will start when kids are young to have actual, family meetings about the family wealth and learn very early on how to manage that and what's going to be needed and be kind of connected as an ecosystem.
Yeah, and you'd be surprised about how smart kids are. You can technically give a 6-year-old an allowance and say, okay, put this in your, this portion of it towards whatever you want to buy, 6 months from now. Put this portion in something that you just want to save for something way in the future. And then maybe there's a little bit that you want to give away, right? So almost planting a philanthropic seed in them from the get-go. Um, while we are the wealthiest nation in the world, last I saw, we were ranked about 14th in the world in terms of financial literacy. So even though kids now are better than certainly than when I was 6 years old, right? We still have a ways to go, including them from a young age and not thinking that they don't know this or that they can't comprehend this. Get them started with a Roth IRA, right? If they're old enough to get some babysitting money or cutting somebody's lawn and earning a few bucks from that, get them started early. The best way for so many of us to learn about money is by doing it, is by having it ourselves and just going through the process of managing it ourselves.
What are some of the things that people sitting at home could do to get themselves thinking about a more stable financial future? What should people start thinking about today?
First of all, talk about it. It's almost as simple as that. Talk about it. So just start getting that topic out there because that's how we're going to change this ecosystem. Secondly, start educating yourself. As I said at the start of this conversation, no one's coming to save us. We have to be accountable for us. And right now, with as much knowledge that's out there, you don't even have to buy a book. You can listen to any number of podcasts. You can subscribe to newsletters, right? I'm a big newsletter gal. I'm a bullet pointed thinker. So that's how I like to receive information. Some others love to dive in. There's something for everybody. So to educate ourselves. But then finally, to just do it. I know 55, 56-year-old women who have never invested a dollar in their entire life. And I say to them, the best time to have done this was yesterday. The next best time is today. So just start investing. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to be frightened. You're going to be intimidated. Just do it. Right. And the thing is, you know more than you think you know. It is one of the things that it's a very common statement that comes out after I talk to women about just the basics, the fundamentals of investing and financial planning. Oftentimes the statement that comes out is, "Oh, is that it?" Yes, that's it. It can be as complex as you want it to be, but it can also be as simplistic as you want it to be. But you just don't have the luxury of saying, "I'm not going to do it." Because think about how many years we've been told you can save your way to long-term wealth creation. That's not a fact. You don't have the luxury of not investing, right? You must invest. So starting, getting our kids started at an early age, but also for our own selves to make sure that we're actually, we're educating ourselves, but then engaging in the action necessary. One of the things that, again, I mentioned earlier, which is no one is asking you to wrestle control away from your significant other. This is not the guidance I'm giving, right? But think about it this way. Do you want to start paying attention to the money if he's on his deathbed, or when you're hanging over the casket, as morbid as this sounds, or after the divorce is finalized, right? Or sometimes, the statistic that I mentioned, 9 out of 10 women, pick any 10 women, 9 of them will become the sole decision makers in their households at some point in their lives. Do you want to wait until that pivotal event, whatever it may be, to learn about financial planning? Of course not. It is when everything is kind of swimming along, that's when you want to start educating yourself. And I am actually pretty optimistic about this, Kimberly, because a lot of women nowadays are doing exactly that. It looks different than even it did 10 years ago. Really, the landscape of women taking ownership of this. The needle is moving.
What do you think historians will look back and say about the next 20 years when they talk about this subject?
Well, one, I think they're going to say it was a silent transformation, because it still boggles my mind how little is known about this, or how few people know about this other than industry insiders and maybe some people on the peripheral edge, right? So it's a silent transformation. But while it's going, I think there might be an element of we're going to learn to fly the plane while we're in air. I think there's going to be a bit of that as women come into this wealth and they start to realize that it's not just about investing, it's about what we can do with it. You start to think, when it's our money, we can actually do a lot more. We can invest in the companies that are more aligned with our values, right? We can build businesses, right? This business, Lotus Women's Institute, is completely bootstrapped by me, completely bootstrapped by me, right? And it's making an incredible impact in this industry that we're in. But I'm not the only one. There are so many women out there. To your point, we're at a historical high in terms of number of women that are launching their own businesses across all industries. But so much of it, we're not going to know as it's happening. We're going to see it in the future and say, this was a specific 20 years, 30 years of profound change, not in wealth management, in our society. It changed the game for where society was headed.
Just by doing that, having this conversation today, we're bringing it out into the open to men and women and everybody, just to understand, that this is coming. I think one of the biggest fears is that you outlive your money. That's a huge fear of women today. You said it. So, I believe that AI will help ensure that people outlive the wealth while also helping them to invest in themselves along the way in terms of learning, cognitive and personal growth, mental performance, creative development, and living healthier for longer. Anyone, whether they have family wealth or not, doesn't matter. Your personalized AI avatar in the future, it's going to become your digital twin. It's going to manage your capital. If your capital is just some money in your bank account, that's fine too. It learns, it knows you, it protects your interests, it negotiates on your behalf across all of these new digital platforms. So you have this ultimate companion and protector in the future, and you don't need to be rich for that. And then co create business ownership with you. It's going to create new businesses on the fly for you. It's already doing that for people. People are creating businesses in a day. They're launching product in 3 hours. So it's going to create these new income streams for people that they never could imagine before, because it's going to think about it, it's going to build it, and it's going to launch it. So that's going to become the new passive income as well. To me, that disrupts the gatekeepers and the financial institutions that aren't thinking about this.
Yes. And so you actually just made a very powerful and important statement. We're recreating the economy. Like, this was like unheard of 10 years ago. So the society is changing in multiple ways. The economy is changing, the workplace is changing. If you want to stay relevant as a financial service firm in the future, as I stated, in just 5 years, women in the United States are going to control the bulk of private wealth. And the time to make sure that you've got women staffed in your office is not in 2030. It is now.
I learned so much from you today, Anita, and I love your passion and your vision. So Thank you so much for spending time with me.
If I have to have any type of a conversation on a Sunday, this would be it. I am incredibly honored to be on your program, and thank you for the chance.
If you're enjoying the show and appreciate what we do, the simplest way you can support us is by hitting the subscribe button and sharing this episode with others. And by doing this, our commitment to you is we'll do our very best to make each and every episode better than the last. See you in the future.